In Romans 6:12 to 13, if you'll turn over there with me, Paul says, "Let not sin therefore reign in your mortal body, to make you obey its passions. Do not present your members to sin as instruments for unrighteousness, but present yourself to God as those who have been brought from death to life, and your members to God as an instrument of righteousness." And then he also says in Corinthians 5:10, you don't have to turn there, just listen to me as I read along. "For we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, so that each one may receive what is due for what he has done in the body, whether good or evil." So Paul is exhorting us to offer our mortal physical bodies as a living sacrifice of purification to God. He's not saying to kill yourself or to offer something that must be shed blood, because that's been done by Christ already. He's offering you an opportunity to offer something more, right? Something that is more substantial than just the physical body. In Genesis 22, God says to Abraham, "Take his son Isaac to the top of the mountain and offer him as a sacrifice." Notice, though, because of Abraham's obedience, Isaac is spared. It was Abraham who was being tested, that he was willing to sacrifice something in order for God's blessing. It wasn't the act of sacrifice, but the obedience of sacrifice that God was looking for. And that, in my view, I think is what God is really asking us to do, is to be obedient in our sacrifice. Whether we give money as a love offering, whether we give our time to those in need, it's not that you actually did the things, but you do these things in obedience to God's will. That's what God expects of us. It kind of reminds me of a story. Many of you who are football fans will understand who I'm talking about when I talk about Roger Staubach, who is the quarterback of Dallas Cowboys in the late 70s. He's won every award at the college level. He was the college quarterback of his day. After he served his time as a college quarterback, calling his own plays, doing his own thing, and winning the Heisman Trophy, he went into the Navy, served his military duty in Vietnam, served admirably in Vietnam, and afterwards went to a pro career and brought a Super Bowl to the Dallas Cowboys in 1971. Roger admits later on in life that as the quarterback of Dallas, he wasn't allowed to call his own plays. So here's a man of pride who called his own plays in college, was a commander in Vietnam, and is now asked to not lead, but follow directions on the football field. The man that was in charge of all the plays was his coach. And by all accounts, his coach is considered a football genius. But that didn't matter to Roger. Roger was the field commander. He wanted to be able to call his own plays. After he had left and retired from football, Roger admitted that the hardest part of winning the Super Bowls was that he had to be obedient to his coach in order for them to be successful. He said, "Once I learned to obey, there was harmony, fulfillment, and victory." I'm guessing that's what Abraham felt after seeing his son pulled off the altar. He waited 100 years for a child, and here God says, put him on this altar to be sacrificed. And because of that obedience, he finds harmony with God. He finds fulfillment in life, and ultimately victory, because his son is removed from that altar, and another sacrifice is put in its place. For us, the victory is Christ. He has already offered himself as a blood sacrifice, and we honor him by submission and obedience. And we become living sacrifices by offering our lives in service to God, seeking to bring the good news to those who have not heard it, and those who have heard it and need to hear more. Paul tells us in the next verse, be not conformed to the world, but be transformed by renewing of the mind. Now this is spiritual worship. This is described in Luke 10:27. When we love God with all our heart, our soul, our strength, and all of our minds. This is the essence of our being. Don't be conformed to the world, but offer your physical body as a sacrifice and your essence as a love offering. Paul is saying to be completely and utterly sold to God. God expects us to be offered to him wholly and undeniably. We are to die to this world and to be reborn in Christ. There's a poem that someone wrote. It's an anonymous poem, but I think it sums up this very thought. It says, when you are forgotten, neglected, and purposely set at naught, and you don't sting or hurt with the oversight, but your heart is happy at being counted worthy to suffer for Christ. That's dying to self. When your good is evil spoken of, when your wishes are crossed, your advice disregarded, your opinion ridiculed, and you refuse to let anger rise in your heart or even defend yourself, to take part in it all in patient, loving silence, that is dying to self. When you lovingly and patiently bear any disorder, any irregularity, any annoyance, when you can stand face to face with waste, folly, extravagance, spiritual insensibility, and endure it as Jesus did, that's dying to self. When you are content with any food and offering, any raiment, any climate, any society, any solitude, any interruption by the will of God, that is dying to self. When you never care to refer to yourself in conversation, or record your own good works, or itch after commendation, when you can truly love to be unknown, that's dying to self. When you see your brother prosper and have his needs met, and can honestly rejoice with him in spirit, and feel no envy, nor question God, while your own needs are far greater and in desperate circumstances, that is dying to self. When you receive correction and reproof from one less stature than yourself, and can humbly submit inwardly as well as outwardly, finding no rebellion or resentment rising up within your heart, that's dying to self.